Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another crowdfunding preview, and today we're talking about Spellrift Legends from Dragori Games. And before I get started, please note that everything you're going to see here is still in the prototype phase and is subject to change. Additionally, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that is where you will find the corrections. Now what this game is this is a game where there are portals kind of opened up everywhere to all these different realms, and you are going to take on the role of a legend, which in my prototype here is Brynhild, the Valkyrie, Miyamoto Musashi, the samurai, or Hercules, the demigod. And my understanding is there will be many more available based off the cover. It looks like one of them might be King Arthur, and so on. But for now, these are the heroes that I have. And for this example, I'll be using cards from Hercules. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be traveling around this realm, attempting to close these void rifts that are going to be popping up all over the place, and accomplish whatever quest it is you need to do based on the specific boss. And in the prototype, the boss that I had was the Eye of Nothingness, is the one that I'll be able to face. And you accomplish their quests, and then you're allowed to fight the boss. And the whole time you're trying to do it before the Doom tracker here reaches 40, which is an instant loss. If all the heroes are dead at the same time, or a solo hero dies 3 times, you have instantly lost. Or if all of the realms have fallen into despair, then you have instantly lost. And the way you're going to be doing that is through a deck building style game with a nice healthy chunk of dice chucking. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. Now, you can't see everything on the board, and that's okay, because you'll see there's all these different realms all the way around, and each realm has its own deck of little exploration quests that you are able to do. The other things that you're seeing out here are a Void Rift, which I mentioned earlier, and some despair tokens left over from my last play. You'll also see a bad guy set up out here, and this is myself here in the middle. Then off to the side, you'll have your boss mat, and that mat's going to tell you how to set up the game, and it's going to tell you what your quest is in order to flip it over in order to do your final combat with the boss. And each boss will also have a deck of cards that you'll generate at the beginning of each game, and another way to lose is if that deck ever runs out and you have no more to draw. But with that said, the way the game's going to work is you're going to have a journey and an exploration phase on your turn, and you get to take extra turns if you're playing solo. And the way that's going to work, as I just kind of move these out of the way for the moment, and I will place a hero board up. And so what's going to happen is, on your turn, you're going to start your turn by gaining 2 legend points. And along with that, you will then draw 3 cards into your hand. And you're going to be able to use a legend point to travel from area to area, 1 point per space. You can also discard cards of the same color to move as well, but you'll move as far as you would like to move. So we'll just say I'm going to go 1 and 2 over to there. That would cost me 2 legend points. Nice and simple. Then when you get to a location, there are a couple things that you can do. You can do a basic exploration, which means you go to the deck of cards that's for that region, and you would flip it over, and you would read your flavor text, and then it tells you what you need to do. In this case, I need to do a yellow test and get a 6. So what I would do is I would go to my cards, and I would take a look at the bottom of the cards. The top parts of the cards are for combat, the bottom are for out of combat. And so for this, perhaps I would play this one here, which will give me 1 die of yellow, and I could instantly draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. And maybe I will also choose to play this one right here, which will let me have 2 of any color dice. So now I'm rolling 3 dice, and you'll note I can copy the state or instant effect of the last card that I played, so then I'd be able to draw 2 more cards and discard 2 more cards. And so then what I will do is I will roll my 3 dice. And I got 5, 6, and 6. And so I needed to get to a 6 to succeed. So in this case, I have 2 successes. And so it says 2 plus number of successes, XP. So then I would get myself 4 XP, like so. Now I'll also point out that had I rolled an 8, that would count as 2 successes. And had, say, I not succeeded on any of my dice, then I could use 1 legend point to re-roll a die. and you can reroll as many times as you want. I will also point out that if you ever have a 1, it actually will cost 3 legend points to reroll a 1. The next thing I'll point out while I am here talking about XP, and I will also point out that there is failure conditions as well, and I would also have gained a blessed condition, which I'm not going to get into, but there's lots of different conditions which do various things. Every time you get to a total of 5 XP, you will level up. And the way that works is, you go to your massive deck of cards here, and you draw the top 3 cards from the deck, and you choose one that you would like. I'll take this one, and the other 2 get placed onto the bottom of the deck. And you have cards that are common, uncommon, and rare, and you shuffle each one of those sets up at the beginning of the game, and you go through the deck, so the more you level up, the better stuff you have access to. So that's one thing that I could possibly do. Then I'll also point out that by succeeding on this, I flip it over, and it has a reward on the back. And the way you gain that reward is if you're ever on the A location, then you can turn it in and gain what the reward is right there. And each of the different realms has a different reward. I also should point out that when I moved onto this tile here, it should have cost me 1 extra legend point because this realm is in despair. Anytime you move onto or off of a realm that has despair, it costs 1 extra movement. So if I were to move from here to here, since both are in despair, it would cost me a total of 3. Now the next thing that I could try to do is I could try to close that Void Rift. And so I would draw a Void Rift card, I would flip it over, and this is going to operate exactly like an exploration. I would use my cards, do the same thing, though the rewards tend to be better. And for this particular boss, that's actually the main goal, is to raise the awareness track, and you only do that by closing Void Rifts. And the last thing that you might wind up doing is you might wind up doing a combat. And so I'll just bring this guy over here. And if I were to enter combat, it's going to again work basically the same way as before, except there is the added complication of the enemy. And depending on how many enemies there are, in this case there's only 1, you'll take a look, you see how much health it has. In this case it has 9 health, and I would simply mark that on this health board like so. And then I would take the same color die here, I would roll that die, and that's going to tell me what it's going to do for the round. So in this case, it's going to roll 5 attack dice against me for melee and ranged. Then I would wind up doing the exact same thing I did before with my cards, except now the cards I'm going to be paying attention to are what's on top of the cards. And I can play these out in as many of them as I want in any order that I want. And it's also really important to note that you have both ranged attacks and you have melee attacks. And what will happen is you'll lay out your cards in the exact order you want them to activate, and you'll do your ranged attack first against the bad guy. And my target here is this 5, so I need to get 5s on these dice in order to do 1 damage. Again, 8 count as 2 damage. I also want to pay attention to the vulnerability, because if I'm using that type of skill, which you're going to find out again on top of the card, it'll take double damage. Then after I do my ranged attack, the bad guy will do its ranged attack. Then I'll do my melee attacks, and then the bad guy will do its melee attacks. And you're simply going to go through that entire round. If the bad guy's still alive, you'll start a new round, you'll gain 2 more legend points, and draw 3 cards, and go right back at it. Then eventually, hopefully you'll win, and you'll get the reward that's right there. And that's basically how the game works. The only other thing that I really need to point out is that when you accomplish the goal, in this case as it was gaining 4 awareness points by closing Void Rifts, then you'll flip it over, and then you'll place the boss, which in my prototype I don't actually have a boss mini. You place it in the exact center of the board, and then you'll be battling the boss. And all the bosses will do something different. In this case, there's a special effect that you roll for at the beginning, but other than that, it's going to work exactly like any other bad guy. And that's how your turn is going to work. Beat the boss, win the game. After that, what will happen is, assuming the boss is still alive, you'll go to the boss deck, you'll flip it over, and it'll do a lot more spawning, and it'll do some spawning at the top of Void Rifts and Despair and monsters. You'll have some flavor text, and there'll be some kind of an effect at the bottom of the card. And sometimes they're ongoing, sometimes they're not. You're going to have 9 rounds to accomplish the boss's quests, which will then flip it over, let you attack it, and then beat it. And that's how this game works. So what do I like about this game? First thing is, as with pretty much all Dragori games, the art is good. and a lot of the stuff that I was playing with, the art isn't finished, and I will say that the ability cards are mostly just text, but beyond that, it does have good art, and there's probably going to be a lot of it. It's a specific style of art that Dragori tends to use, so, I guess you like it or you don't, but I tend to like it. The next thing I'll say is, there is a ton of potential variety to this game. And I say potential variety because I only got one boss in the prototype. And if the other bosses are significantly different, then that's really going to change up what it is that you're trying to do. And this boss that I had is pretty simple. It was move around, find the rifts, close the rifts. That's all you were doing. But if the other bosses have more interesting, and by interesting I mean perhaps complex is what I mean, ways to flip them over, that's really going to increase the variety of the game and make it significantly more interesting. Next thing I'm going to say is, I love the leveling up. It is fast in every sense of the word. It's really easy to do. Draw 3 cards. Now you have a new card. Level up enough times and you're going to get better and better cards. Very, very easy. But also, it's every 5 experience. And it is so easy to get experience. Go do a quest. Oh, look, I got 3 experience plus however many successes I got. Oh, I killed a guy. Oh, I got 4 experience. It's just super fast. It's almost every turn I found I was leveling up. And some turns, at least when I was playing solo, which would mean you kind of do 2 turns back to back, I would level up twice in a single turn. And so it's really, really satisfying the way it works. And you have some really nice choice to make as you're drawing those cards, because all the cards are good, but you kind of get to look around and see what might be coming up and then draw cards based on that. Really satisfying. Really like the way that works. Next thing I'll say is, the characters are solidly different. And mostly what I'm referencing are their core abilities that are just printed on their mat. And those are really cool. I think about how with Hercules, it referenced the 12 labors of Hercules, so I wanted to actually go do the quests that were around the board. I didn't talk about the quests really, but they're just things that are out there you can go do, and you flip it over, you take a test, whatever. But I was really rewarded for doing those quests, so I wanted to keep going and doing all the different quests, whereas Matsumoto, he has the ability to pretty much always be inflicting the type of damage that a bad guy is vulnerable to. So he's going to want to go and do a lot more fighting, while Brunhilde, she had the ability to kind of fly all over the board really easily. So very, very significant differences there. A little bit less so when it came to the cards. Flavor-wise, there's different flavors and all of that, but less variety, I think, in the cards than there are in the actual character abilities. Next thing I'll say is, you really do feel heroic. You are doing everything. You're exploring areas and saving people and stopping monsters, you're fighting monsters, you're closing rifts, you're doing quests, you're removing despair from the region. So you really do feel like you're heroic. You are doing everything. You're like crossing entire kingdoms. Really heroic feeling stuff. I also like that in a lot of games that use cards, the amount of cards that you have to play with tend to be limited, but not in this one. You draw 3 cards every turn. Every round of combat, you draw 3 cards. And so you get a lot of cards. I think maybe once in my plays did I feel like, I don't have any cards to do anything, in which case you can always rest, I can always just go do something a little simpler, and take 1 turn, and then suddenly I'm back in the action. So you're never starved for resources, and that's really nice. I also like the core resource you have, this legend points. And it references different things, it might be key or mana, like whatever. But the way that that works, letting you move around, letting you reroll dice, it's really simple and it's really clean in the sense that I can build up for a big turn, or I can just kind of do small little turns here and there. And I like how, again, easy it is to get it. It doesn't take a lot to regenerate these points. Because again, you're getting 2 of them every round, and there's plenty of stuff that rewards you with more legend points. Next thing I'll say is, this game just showers rewards on you. Just constantly. Everything you do, you're getting cool stuff. You're getting more cards. You're getting items. You're getting legend points. Just constant rewards for things. Even when you fail, you get some reward, which is really, really nice to kind of just keep the game moving. And to add to that, the exploration cards, when you complete it, you get that reward, but you also keep the card, and if you go to the right spot on the region, you get rewarded even more, which is just great because some of them, you can save those up until it really, really matters, and then do something very cool with it. So I really like the way that works. And the last thing I'll say is, it's really easy to travel around the map. It looks big to get from one place to the other, but you can always just cross right through the middle, and even though the board feels really big, you never feel like something is completely out of reach. At least not until like the very end of the game if you suddenly have to cross the map for some reason. But in general, it's easy to travel, and so I like all of that. So what are my quibbles with the game? I'm going to go back to what I started with the variety. I don't know. If the other bosses aren't interesting in different ways than the first boss, then there's not going to be much variety here, which means you're not going to play it that many times. Next thing I'll say is, as I alluded to earlier, the real difference in the characters to me are on the player boards, and so there's a little less variety than perhaps you might think there's going to be, though everyone gets to build their deck differently, so there is that variety. Next thing I'll say is, I mentioned earlier that you really feel heroic, and with that, every character can do everything. I mean, yes, Hercules has more strength than, say, Brunhilde does, but every character can do everything. So that kind of adds to what I was mentioning earlier about the character variety. Everyone can do everything, and some are a little better here and there, but for the most part, you're going to be fine with any character that you pick. Next thing I'll say is, because everything is just boiled down to tests and rolling the dice, I do wonder if perhaps some of the theme of these missions and quests and fights hasn't been streamlined out a little bit. Yes, I know that if I'm rolling the red test, I'm doing strength. And if I'm doing the green, I'm doing agility. But at the end of the day, I'm just chucking a few dice. And so perhaps some of the theme is kind of streamlined out of there. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about are the rerolls. Now, this doesn't bother me because I enjoy chaos, and I'm fine with chaos, and you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. But there are so many gamers that get frustrated by the dice are going to determine what I do, and I can plan the greatest turn in the world, and the dice let me down. And this game does offer rerolls, but I can't tell you how many times I rerolled into the exact same number, or I rerolled into a worse number. And so that may or may not bother you, and it can perhaps get frustrating as you're going through, and suddenly you started the turn with 7 legend points, and you burned it all on your rerolls, and you still got nothing. And then the only thing that I will mention that stuck in my craw a bit, specifically about the dice and the rerolling, is the penalty for having a 1. I kind of understand that it's a fumble, and you lose a success for having a 1, but the fact that it is so hard to reroll out of it, it's 3 times as hard to do it, that's a real bummer. It just seems really punishing, and it feels like it doesn't need to be that punishing. But there you have it, folks. That is Spellrift Legends. I didn't know exactly what to expect coming from the company that did Odalin and Tanaris Adventures and Tanaris Expeditions, which is very much dungeon crawl adventure style game. And now suddenly this one is more crisis management and kind of boss battle, but I guess crisis management is there. And it really does feel different, but it's doing a lot that I think is right. You really do feel like you are a legend, and that's really cool. The game plays quick, and once you have it organized, it sets up pretty quick. It has that really cool leveling, and so I think if you like crisis management style games, and you like the idea of this kind of deck building going on, then I think this is one that you're probably really going to enjoy. But there you have it, folks. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that in the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.